This weekend, thousands of people took to the streets in cities across Russia, including St. Petersburg and Yekaterinburg and Moscow, to protest Vladimir Putin's umpteenth inauguration. Protest his staying in office for 6 more years and hand-picking fake opponents to ensure he would win this re-election. We're used to seeing robust protests take place against Putin now, people waving flags and signs and saying down with the czar. We're even used to seeing pretty violent arrests taking place at these protests. Over 1,600 people were arrested this weekend, including Putin's main actual adversary, opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who was dragged away and arrested by police this weekend for the umpteenth time. Putin won this re-election after hand-picking his fake opponents and jailing his real ones. This is a tactic we've grown accustomed to in Putin's Russia, but we haven't been used to seeing all of this stuff. These guys in the fur hats, not the guys wearing police visors, but the guys in the fur hats, these are pro-Kremlin Cossack fighters. They were also at the protest this weekend wielding leather whips to lash protesters and bully people. The Guardian reports that those Cossack fighters will once again be out in full force in just a few weeks during the World Cup. Quote, according to documents published by the Moscow mayor's office, Moscow's administration paid to train Cossacks and how to ensure public safety at events in the city. Having Cossack fighters out in the streets with whips taking on protesters, it seems bad. Giving them a municipal contract and putting them in charge of public safety at an international event like the World Cup, that seems even worse. Vladimir Putin's last term as president was marked by his decision to invade and take over part of another country, also invading Syria, also, of course, monkey-wrenching the American presidential election to the benefit of Donald Trump. But it seems at the start of his next term, it seems like things are getting worse. It seems like that the more attention you pay, the worse it seems. If you're somebody who takes a wider view, though, a longer view, a better informed view of Putin and his place in Russia right now, are things worse, or have they always been this bad? Joining us now is Michael McFaul. He's the former U.S. ambassador to Russia. He's author of the very timely new book, From Cold War to Hot Peace, an American ambassador in Putin's Russia. Mr. Ambassador, great to see you. Thank you for doing this.
Great to see you.
Congratulations on the book.
Fun to be on the set and stuff.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here. Congratulations both on the timing and the accomplishment of this.
Thank you.
Let me just ask, in terms of news right now, Putin's sworn in today for another 6 years. When he was first president, it was only a 4-year term.
Correct.
Now it's 6 years. This will be his 18th year in office?
Correct. Depending on how you count the prime ministership. But yeah,
But he essentially seemed like he was running the place still while he was prime minister. Do you think he'll be in office until he dies?
Probably so. He does not have an exit strategy. He does not have a political party. He doesn't have a successor. And there are people around him that depend on him for their money, the oligarchs, the people that some of those people you just showed in the video there, they can't afford for him to leave because they know that once he does, I think they're right about this, that regime will fall apart.
What did you make of seeing those sort of paramilitary protesters with whips in the streets?
Well, it brought back memories because when I was ambassador in 2012, those guys, they didn't bring their whips, but they did bring their knives and their big hats, and they used to follow me around Moscow all the time. When I would show up to see a human rights activist or attend some event, they, along with these kind of neo-nationalist kids, would show up with their cameras all the time wherever I went. But this is new. Beating up on protesters, people who are not part of the government, that's new, and that scares me.
And that, I mean, in a government where Putin has centralized as much power as he has, and where law enforcement has become an arm of political control, I don't necessarily understand why an autocratic environment like that would also need essentially paramilitaries.
Well, it's part of the Putin playbook. So not unlike our elections, not unlike poisonings and assassinations, Putin likes to have distance between the actual official government and other intermediaries and proxies that do these kinds of things. So he does it on lots of fronts, right? So he can deny that they're not part of the government. So when they put out disinformation, as they used to do with me as ambassador, they can say, well, that's not us. We have a free society. Mr. Ambassador, you have to admire our independent free media here. Pretty classic Putin tactic. Sometimes, though, it gets out of hand when those agents don't exactly follow what Putin wants to have happen.
Or when it becomes too obvious that what they're doing can't be on their own terms.
Right.
At the end of the book, you have this kind of a sad moment. You
yeah,
say
it's a tragedy. The book's a tragedy.
It is. My life's work of trying to bring our two countries closer, of trying to integrate a democratic Russia as a responsible and important stakeholder in the international community of states seems like a failure. To punctuate the tragedy, I'm now persona non grata in a country I love, a place where I've lived for years and which I studied for decades. You are not optimistic about the rest of your lifetime reversing these trends.
Well, I'm not optimistic in the short run because I do think Putin's in power. I don't see that changing anytime soon. But in the long run, I'm incredibly optimistic about Russia and its future with the West and with democracy.
Because you love Russia.
Well, A, I love Russia because I'm passionate about Russia, but B, I'm also a social scientist. And we know that the richer countries become, the more likely they are to become democratic. That's a trend we've seen for hundreds of years. Russia's a pretty rich place with a lot of smart people. They have their heads down now, right? Those brave people you just showed, they have their heads up and they're getting hit. Some of them were 12 years old, by the way. But a lot of the people that were protesting earlier, back when I was ambassador, they have their heads down now. They don't want to be arrested. They're breadwinners in their families. They can't go to jail, but they haven't changed their preferences about Putin. And I think the era after Putin will be very interesting and hopefully will move them in a more democratic direction, and that means a closer relationship with the West.
And the longer he stays in power, the more potent it is to be able to imagine Russia without him, which at this point is a revolutionary idea.
That's a great point.
Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, author of From Cold War to Hot Peace. Well done. Thank you. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.